It's time for the Chips and Salsa Show.
The only show about Latinos for Latinos. And did we mention Latinos?
It's the Latísima.
Latinos come in all flavors, shapes, and sizes. You don't have to be Latino to enjoy chips and salsa.
Everybody loves chips and salsa.
Welcome to the Chips and Salsa Show. This is Don Jorge El Alacran with my co-host, Doña Cheryl Rosado.
Hi.
And I just want to say a few words. Today's Tuesday, the 20th. And if everybody doesn't know, there's going to be a Trump rally, but she's going to talk about it.
Yep.
We have Laugh for Hope on Friday. Laugh for Hope on Friday at Xavier College at 7 p.m. And it's going to be a fun day today. And,
are you going to be at that? Are you going to the Laugh for Hope? Or?
I have to work.
Oh,
I'm doing the Def Leppard concert. So
nice.
You're going to tell us about California.
I am going to tell you about California. But before I tell you about California, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor for the show for today. Thank you so much to Pure 5 Extraction. They are our sponsor, and we are super appreciative to have them because they make our life so much easier, especially for our producer, Eric. But I did just get back from San Diego. It was amazing. I heard a lot of people saying, oh, you guys are going to get there, and even though it's August, the water's going to be freezing. And it was cool, but the kids loved it. We loved it. We stopped in Cabazon and we saw the Pee Wee Herman dinosaur. We got to go up into the T-Rex mouth. It was phenomenal. But one thing that I thought was it surprised me at least, was that when we were there at Mission Beach and like on the boardwalk and stuff, was all the Trump swag. There was Trump swag all over to buy. I didn't see one single Kamala item, not on a person, not for sale, not in sight. It was just like Trump. I wore my Trump hat. I have a Trump 2024 hat that I wore, and I got compliments on it on the beach. So that was very exciting for me. So I just, normally I don't think that I would bore you with my
Are you sure you were in
vacation.
California?
I know. I was surprised, but I was like, this is my sign to come back to the beach. So that was my trip. And then, yes, we have the Trump rally on Friday. I'm so excited. That just really seemed like it came out of nowhere. Desert Diamond Arena there in Glendale. I have tickets. I'm going to be taking my oldest daughter. It's going to be her very first Trump rally. So I hope that it'll be an amazing experience for us. And I thought it was really cool because Don Jorge and I and our guest for today, all three of us managed to be on stage at the last Trump rally that we had. What was that, in June? And so I just was like, what are the odds, that we're going to talk about it today because it's this week and all three of us were on stage. So I thought that was pretty cool. And so as I mentioned, our guest is Seak Smith. Seak runs Mom Army and Dad Army, and she is a much accomplished wife and mother, and we're so excited to have her on the show today. I know Seak, I met her from Mom's Coalition. She's on there with me and we're doing our thing. And I know she had a great event for a movie that she backs called Beneath Sheep's Clothing. And she's here to tell us all about that and Mom and Dad Army. So we got a lot to chit chat about today, don't we, Seak?
Yes, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here and have this conversation. There is a lot to talk about, so I'm excited.
Great. So tell us first about the movie, since I mentioned that already.
So Beneath Sheep's Clothing, I was lucky enough to be a contributor to the film, just a small part. I was kind of a last addition to the film through my friend Robert, who is actually part of an organization called Gays Against Groomers that we work with very closely. But they were filming at his house, and I just casually mentioned to him that my dad had escaped genocide and communism in Cambodia in the 70s. And right away, he reached out to the author, Julie Bailing, who wrote the book Beneath Sheep's Clothing, and said, hey, we should probably have Seak on for the film and interview her. So less than 24 hours later, I'm at his house as they were setting up to film his interview. And that was kind of the rest of that. That was late last year when I did the interview. It was like late fall. And the film just released for streaming on August 9th, so just about a little over a week ago, and it's getting a lot of raving reviews. I'm very proud to be part of it. Steve Sorensen, who is the filmmaker from Sacred Honor Media, is a really talented and gifted filmmaker. And it's very the timing of this film is really important because of what we're experiencing as a country. of this fast tracking to socialism and communism through what has become a very extreme takeover of the Democratic Party. That's my opinion. But so yeah, so it's Beneath Sheep's Clothing movie. You can stream it for $12.99. I would say if you have high school children, college kids, it's definitely something that they should learn about. It really does a good job at the historical part of it and tying it to what's going on today to give people a sense of that communism isn't coming to the U.S. It's already here. Mm-hmm. We just have to start talking about it more and warning people what's at stake here. So yeah, thanks for allowing me to talk a little bit about the film.
And I'm glad that you were able to come with it being so new since it just launched and to chat with us about it. And like you said, it's based on a book. And have you met the author? Yes,
she's become a good friend. She was going to the Soviet Union and ended up interviewing a lot of the underground Christians that had been basically ostracized in Soviet society and, being targeted, to not be able to practice their religion freely. So she was able to really get a grasp on the tyranny of the Soviet Union towards, different groups and what communism, the effects of communism in the Soviet Union, but then tying it to what's going on in the U.S. today, through our churches, the takeover of some of our churches, the takeover of our education system by really radical ideologies. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm really happy to help get the message out there, and more people are learning about the film and watching it and giving it raving reviews. We just got Glenn Beck tweeted about it. Rob Schneider has said some really good things about it. Gina Carrera.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I love her.
Yep. We've got some good people backing the film.
That's really cool. And I think it's exciting to see something that you're a part of to grow like that and to get, the shout outs from these conservative voices that we know and we like to listen to and see what they have to say, and to hear them talking about your own project. Like you must be so proud.
I mean, for me, Glenn Beck is a big deal. My education was really, I owe it to Glenn Beck. When he was still on CNN, I was watching him with his whiteboard and teaching history and Cloward and Piven, like all these names that I knew nothing about. And he taught me, and he would bring guests on that talked about the true American history. And so I learned a lot through Glenn Beck. So I really have to say that he has really helped shaped my knowledge around some of these really big issues. So to have him give a stamp of approval for the film is really an honor. It is special.
And then, so that's one one part of Seek, but you also do Mom and Dad Army. Yeah. So talk to us about that, because that's really cool.
So Mom and Dad Army, it stems from my activism and advocacy for safeguarding children and protecting children. So for almost 15 years, I've been fighting child sex trafficking in all sorts of different forms, whether it's fundraising. I did the Save Our Children March in Hollywood. I'm from LA originally, but I did the Save Our Children.
Hold it against you.
Yeah, please don't hold it against me. I'm not that. I'm a very different Californian. But back in 2020, during the lockdown, me and two other friends got together and we organized a Save Our Children March right after the George Floyd riots and right after all of the BLM protests. Because I watch the country, I watch all these people pour into the streets upset about that issue. And I was very passionate and still very passionate about children and what's happening to children. What I consider the real pandemic is the sexual abuse of children and the trafficking of children. So we rallied and did a protest in Hollywood back in August of 2020. And I would sit on panels. I would whatever I could do to amplify the issue and talk about the issue. That was really important to me. But that morphed once I moved to Arizona 3 years ago. So 2 years ago, August 2022, something was happening. Like there was this overwhelming sense of attacks on our children. I was watching it happening, after COVID through the medical system.
Right.
And then just things with our education system and entertainment. And it felt like our kids were being targeted, and I'm like, I told my husband in a conversation in our car, like, oh my God, they're coming after our children. Like, what's happening?
They sure are.
And he looked at me and said, you work with amazing women all over the country. Why don't you guys come together in a more unified voice? So That led to launching Mom Army in August of 2022 with about 100 different women and mom from across the country. And we wanted to speak about these issues in a very bold and loud and truthful way. And
like a mom.
Like a mom. And fast forward 2 years later, I mean, we have multiple chapters all over the country. We do a lot of advocacy work at the state capitals. We do nationwide rallies. I'm really proud of the efforts that collectively what our moms have done. But the one thing I do want to share about Mom Army very quickly is that we're a survivor-led organization. So that's important to distinguish because so many of our moms are victims and survivors of child sexual abuse themselves. So they fight a little bit differently because they don't want what happened to them to happen to other children. So
exactly. You have a different perspective.
Yeah. I'm not a survivor myself, but just working, I do healing retreats for survivor, and you are.
I am.
I did not know that.
I know. And I am so passionate. I know in so many ways people find me a bit overprotective of my children. But you know what? There's nothing I wouldn't do to keep their innocence. And there's no price that I wouldn't be willing for me personally to pay to keep them innocent and to keep them safe, and not just my children, but all children. You know what I mean? Because what happened to me, what happens to kids, it should never happen.
Yeah, it's life altering.
It is, and it definitely changed my life and the way that I have viewed myself and the way that I view the world, the way that I view men as a whole, like everything. And I only now as an adult, when I look back, do I see the impact that it has had on my life. And I definitely want to spare every single child that I can from that.
What about the child exploitation across the border?
Oh, yeah.
How do you... How
trafficking?
Trafficking, using kids to come across the border and sending them by themselves and sending them by themselves and
I have a lot to say about that. What's really infuriating and what is so today a headline came through the government accountability department. I forget the 3-letter agency, but they basically found that the Biden administration lost 291,000 kids over the border. They have no idea where these kids are at. They have no idea. They don't have a way of tracking them, whether or not they've been trafficked or abused or killed. Like there's 291,000 is astronomical in the 3.5 years that this administration has been in power. So,
and it's inexcusable.
It's criminal. I mean, yes, it rises at the level of we need some type of international court kind of thing, because crimes against children to me is the most horrific thing that, and then when it's government sanctioned, people need to understand that our government is allowing this, supporting it, and our tax dollars is funding it.
Right.
That's the other part we need to really understand. So
we need people to get angry about these things.
If nothing else, when it comes to the border, is to shut it down so children don't get trafficked. Right. And that should be worth every dollar and every bit of our fight to keep this from happening. But
because children are worth it.
So I'm angry. I saw that headline today and it really, really infuriated me. And people aren't outraged. They're outraged about minuscule things, other things that's happening in our society. And this should be the one thing that unites us, to be like out in the street with pitchforks.
And what did you say earlier before you were shooting? You said keeping children safe should not be political.
No, it shouldn't. But here's the thing that I found out in this fight, working with dads who have lost custody of their children because they're not affirming the gender. Like there's all these issues around children. But one thing I've learned is there is no money in protecting and safeguarding children. There's a lot of money to be made when you traumatize children. That's what we're seeing. And we have a system that is willing to profit off of the misery and trauma of children.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so I won't mince words about that. That's exactly what I'm observing.
And I think that's what we need. We need people to stand up and say, this is going on. Mm-hmm. And people are turning a blind eye because they can make a couple bucks. And that's disgusting.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. And then, so the question is, how do we band together to bring solutions around this? Leadership is important. Look, I'm not one to put all my trust in a politician. Believe me, I'm the last person. I don't idolize politicians, but we have to be educated and understand we live in a certain system that needs to work for the people. And one of it is being educated enough to pick the right leaders to create, to implement the right policies that will help families, that will help children, that will help us thrive. And the last, almost 4 years has shown us the complete opposite.
Right.
So we're in a very pivotal moment in our country's history, honestly, especially, for someone like me whose family escaped genocide and communism in Cambodia. I see all the warning signs just glaring at me. It's just flashing. And I have this innate sense of urgency to tell everybody, like, this is what's coming. We really need to, I think having friends from different, that have escaped communism in different countries, it can happen overnight. Seemingly, Venezuela was one of the most prosperous South American country not that long ago. And in 1 or 2 generations, I mean, look at Venezuela now because of the policies that have been and the leadership that has been.
It started in like 2000, right? I mean, it's 2024.
That's what I mean, like 1 or 2 generations ago.
So what did Dad's army do? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. No, when we started Mom Army, I was getting messages from all over the world. Our DMs would be filled from moms in Peru and New Zealand and Ireland and the UK and Australia. And they would say, oh my God, how can I get involved? This is happening in my country too. We're seeing the same issues. And then we started getting messages from the dads who were saying, I love what you're doing. I support you. How can I help? And initially some of the dads would like donate to us. They, send in $50 or $20 or whatever. And then it came to the realization, I started getting connected to dads who are really active, especially our dad, Bryce Henson in San Diego. He was very vocal. And so he came on board to help lead the effort to build Dad Army. And now Dad Army is basically a group of really strong, protective men and fathers who really want to change the culture around how men and fathers, are portrayed in our culture. And how they can impact, families and their role in all of the things that are happening in our world. And so they're an amazing group of guys. It's a smaller group than our Mom Army, but they are ex-military, current military members, law enforcement, just people who truly, truly care about the direction our country is going and wanting to help shift that around. So yeah, I'm really proud of them, and they kind of do their own thing. They've got a couple of initiatives that they're working on, but they help each other. They're a very good support network. Men don't seem to have that the way women. We're very community oriented. We're we find our tribe, we find our people, and we, we have coffee and, we get together for dinner. But dads don't really have that. And so what we're trying to do is create something like that for the dads. And they get together. When they were in town for our gala, they got together for cigars and, and some beer, and they do their guy thing, but they're talking about
a manly.
Yeah, but they're talking about things that are important and things that matter, and how to strategize around that. So yeah, it's an amazing
and
group.
Not just the UFC fight, but like things that matter.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
Does the Dad Army also do political endorsements? Because I know Mom Army does.
We do it together. So our endorsements is a combination of Mom and Dad Army. And usually the vetting, I'll get one of our leaders on the ground in that district or that area going, this candidate is really strong in this. And then I'll get on an interview and I'll talk to the candidate for 30 minutes to an hour. And that's usually, I just got off a call with a candidate named Bruce Liu, who's running for Congress in San Francisco against Nancy Pelosi.
Ooh.
Yeah, so he
has our support.
Yeah. Really young Asian guy, really smart. He had been a community activist in his neighborhood. I mean, he was passing out like mace to older Asian, their elders, keeping them safe. So he was doing all this grassroots community effort, and he decided to throw his hat into it. He's under 30. He's not even 30 years old. Very passionate. So we're getting ready to endorse him.
Awesome. So you heard it here first.
Yeah. Yeah. And we also have another candidate, Yvette. I forget her last name right now. I can't think of it. And I apologize for that. But she's running against Scott Wiener in San Francisco, who's like the face of all the bad bills in California.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So we definitely, if you're in California listening, those are some names to watch for and support.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier that another thing Mom Army does is you train people on the issue so that they are able to go in the community and speak with authority.
Yeah.
And I think that's important because so many people feel like they want to get involved and they feel a little timid, like, but who am I? I know I feel like that sometimes, but who am I? Who's going to listen to me? I don't know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? And I think that kind of training is invaluable.
Yeah. And I think usually the message we'll get is like, I can't stay silent anymore. How do I get involved? And so for us, it's trying to meet people where they're at. Everyone is in a different place in their comfort level. So allowing them to plug in, and we do Saturday town hall meetings. We call them our Soul Saturdays. And we let people plug in, and sometimes we'll bring expert guests onto onto our Zoom to train and talk about very specific topics. We've had Heidi Chance, who is a retired Phoenix detective who fights trafficking. So she comes and she just released her book. She goes around the country training law enforcement departments on this issue. She's a really good friend. She sits on our Mom Army Advisory Council. So she has come in to do training. Our really good friend, Kaylee Kozak, who is a legislative activist and a survivor of child sexual abuse. And she has Kaylee's Law that's named after her. She has done trainings on how to build relationships with your legislators, how to get a bill passed.
Yes.
So learning from people who've already walked the path is really, really crucial and important. And so that people can see normal, regular people are doing it and you could do it too.
Right.
So
and you don't want to have to reinvent the wheel.
No.
If somebody already went through it and they learned this works and this doesn't, like that's that kind of knowledge.
Yeah. That's
what
invaluable.
It's invaluable. That's
Right?
what you want to be passing around.
Yeah. I mean, someone like Kaylee has spent the last 3 years, she spent 3 years getting her law passed. So she has learned the pitfalls and the ins and outs of that. And so we're so fortunate to have her on our Mom Army Advisory Council. And she, I can literally text her and call her and be like, hey, we need you for this. Or she'll need us for something. She'll say, hey, I'm testifying against a bill or for my bill. Can we get some people down here? So many ways to get involved. You can get involved from the legislative side. We do lawfare. We get involved with lawsuits and class action lawsuits. We have a legal partner here in Scottsdale that's on our advisory council that we work with, so many ways.
Okay, so let's just go ahead and pause and we'll take a commercial break and then we'll be right back to finish up with Seak, find out all the things that Mom Army does.
Ready to take your craft to the next level? Imagine faster extractions, purer products, and more profits. Sounds good, right? At Pure 5 Extraction, we've revolutionized cannabis extraction with our game-changing technology. No solvents, no heat, just the cleanest, most natural process on the market. Whether you're a boutique grower or a large-scale operation, Pure 5 has the tools to elevate your business worldwide. Visit pure5extraction.com today. Pure 5 Extraction, because your plants deserve the best.
Ugh, this air conditioner isn't working again. I'm roasting in here.
Hi there. I'm from Canaloo Air. I'm here to fix your air conditioner.
Canaloo Air is a family-owned HVAC company that specializes in residential air conditioning and heating. We offer a variety of services, including installation, replacement, repair, and maintenance. Canaloo Air. We keep your home comfortable all year round. Call us today for a free quote. Why Canaloo Air? Here are the top 5 reasons. Family-owned and operated. We are committed to high-quality service. Our technicians use the highest quality parts and equipment. The business is a member of the Home Advisor Elite Service Award program. And finally, we have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Visit our website, canilooair.com, or call us today, 602-609-3480, to schedule an appointment.
Okay, we're back. Thanks for sticking with us. And we're here with Seak Smith of Mom Army and Dad Army. And she was telling us about how Mom Army and Dad Army, like, they don't just make endorsements like, oh, this person's my friend, you should vote for them. No, like, she vets them. She, like she said, an in-depth interview. She has to get a recommendation from someone first. Like, that's what I want to see. I feel like too much of it is like, oh, we're pals. So, no, you need to do your homework. And knowing that makes Mom Army and Dad Army endorsements worth a lot more.
Yeah. One thing we do is we have a like 15-point pledge that they have to sign on to. So we send them this pledge, and it's all around children and safeguarding children, because that's our core mission. So they have to agree to either work with us on some of these things, promote it, stand firm on these issues. And then we also make them watch a short documentary about communism so that they understand the fight that they're going into, and as they are the elected official in that position, that they really need to know what they're up against. So we have a couple of steps before we give the endorsement. But we endorsed Phil Lyman for governor in Utah. I met him a couple of times as we were touring the Beneath Sheep's Clothing premiere, and he actually sat next to me at one of the premieres, and he, so different ways. But once we find a candidate that comes highly recommended, like I said, we do an interview process. There's a pledge. There's things they need to do, and then we help get the word out for them, help amplify their voice. We had in California, quite a few of our endorsements made it past the primary. So now they're in the general election. Yeah.
Awesome.
So we're excited to see them hopefully get in those positions.
I really like that you have them sign a pledge. You have them watch a documentary. Like, you're not just like, okay, the interview is it. Like, no, like there needs to be some effort on their part, and there should be, because these are the people that are supposed to be our public servants.
Yep.
And I think so many politicians forget about that part.
Yeah. And I think what people have to understand, when people are like, oh, I'm not political, I don't want to be for whatever. Your value system is directly connected to your politics. Right. So you vote based on your values.
Exactly.
And you want people in office that represent and your values, and what we're seeing right now is this decay of morality, and I grew up Buddhist, so I'm not even like, religious in that manner, but we can't have a society where like the moral compass of a society is completely out the window.
Right.
Which is why we see the chaos.
Right.
That we see.
Your truth and my truth and whatever. Like, no, that's not how it works.
How bad do you think we are nearing communist or socialism?
I need people to understand that it's been festering for decades. So this is when people are like, how do we get here? That's always the question people have, right? Because it's gotten so bad. Well, we didn't get here overnight. It's been creeping in our system. Marxist, mantras. And they were given marching orders, 70 years ago to get into the education system.
Right. The education system. That's
where
exactly where it started. And that's where
we used to think it was just like higher education, right? The universities. They were brainwashing our college students. Well, they went from that to our high schools to now down to our elementary schools and our kindergartners.
Yeah, it's in kindergarten now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're basically, what they're doing is they're filling young, impressionable minds, young, malleable minds with ideologies. And what they're basically doing is creating little revolutionaries, right? That they can activate for their cause and their ideology. So while we're all busy working and running our businesses and sending our kids to public school, or even private schools now that have been taken over, they are filling our children's minds with, very
propaganda,
dangerous propaganda. Exactly. And which is why we are in the mess we're in.
Right. See it in the Palestinian thing. If you see the protesters out there, they're from every,
I do wonder sometimes, like, when did this happen? Because I feel like when I was younger, although I didn't go to public school, I don't feel like my contemporaries were radicalized the way that my baby cousins, who are, they're adults, but they're considerably younger than me, they were radicalized. Yeah. And I'm just like, how was there this leap?
Yeah.
In between.
So
but
we have to understand as a society, and as parents especially, right? All my kids went to public school in Los Angeles. We worked really hard to be our children's biggest influence. The minute you relegate your influence to outside forces, like teachers, look, it's great to have a good teacher in your kid's life. Don't get me wrong, but you should be your children's biggest influence. They should be comfortable coming to you. And so my kids, despite growing up in Los Angeles and going to LA public school, they're very conservative and they're very independent.
Good job, Mama.
Yeah, I'm very proud of that. My husband and I are really, really proud of that. But they're very independent minded and free thinkers, and they question everything, which is what you want your kids to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You need to cultivate a love of learning, which is a love of questioning. Why this?
Curiosity.
How did that? Curiosity. Yeah.
Agree.
They have to trust you. They have to trust that you're the parent, you're the person they come to, not the teacher, not the teacher.
But a lot of times our system is teaching people to just blindly go along with authority.
Right.
You know, and I remember my son, he's 25 now, but when he was in like first grade, he would question his teachers. Like he'd ask them these questions, and even, you know, going into middle school and all of that, because we just taught him, like, don't just take people's word for it. You need to question if that is in fact true, and you need to research, and you need to do all of these things. So I just think we really have to have a shift in not relegating our authority to other entities, especially to government institutions.
Yes, especially there. And I think that if we had people who were questioning, why are you saying this? Where did this come from? In more aspects of our life, in church, are you, what you're saying, is that like really in the Bible, or is that your opinion? You know, we need that. We need, like, you know, the teacher says this, but where did they get that from? We need kids doing that. We need adults doing that. Like, you need to have more discernment. It's all the way around.
Yeah. And, you know, I just watched an episode of PragerU where they interviewed Douglas Murray from the UK. Really, really brilliant thought leader. But he said something very poignant. He said, there's two dark ages. The one dark ages was lack of information and, you know, ignorance and lack of information. Now we're in the age of ignorance with a lot of information.
Right. It's like overload.
And people can't discern what's real and what's not, and what's truthful and what's not. I jokingly said to my husband the other day, I'm like, we literally are like living in a simulation. Like, there are people who live in such a false reality, like a world filled with lies.
Yes.
They can't seem to get past through it. It's almost like this psyop, you know, because, and I'm saying this from like friends I got into an internet argument with a friend. I normally don't do that, but recently got into an internet comment section argument with a very good friend who happens to be very liberal. And I mean, she, as smart as she is, was speaking nonsense, you know, and to me, it's like, that's the scary part of all of this. When you ask, like, how fast communism, like, what are we seeing around us? We have people who are easily brainwashed, easily manipulated, will go along with lies, and will literally dehumanize their neighbor and their friends because we don't agree with them.
Right.
They do.
Passionately.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the dangerous part, because they're not, they have let themselves believe it so they can genuinely believe it, and that can influence other people because they genuinely believe it.
Right? They, you know, COVID was a great example, right? Literally living through COVID in Los Angeles was like a whole nother thing. It was like a twilight zone. But what happened was people, like I said, was dehumanizing each other, and people lost their marbles and their humanity, no longer looking at the other person as a human being, you know, and filled with so much fear. You know, and then using that fear to excuse their actions.
Right.
You know, like getting yelled at a hiking trail in the canyons, in Topanga Canyon, because I didn't have my mask on while I was like walking outside. It was crazy, you know, but that's what was happening.
Yeah. And that's California. So, well, thank you, Seak, so much for coming to talk with us today. And go ahead and, do you have a website, or how can people find out more information if they're interested in joining Mom Dad Army or donating or any kind of support?
Yeah. Well, we're actually in the middle of redesigning our website, which I'm super excited for. We haven't really done much of that work lately, but we are. So mom-army.com is our website. You can find us on Instagram mostly. That's our social media presence. It's the.momarmy and the.dadarmy. But yes, any way you want to plug in, we check our DMs regularly. DM on Instagram is the best way to go. But please get in touch with us. If you're ready to get activated, we're happy to bring you on board, and we're happy to help.
And you do take donations like online?
Yes.
Okay, you have a button or something?
Yeah,
so people can
on our
you?
website.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we also have a big campaign right now for our Hope Box, so you can find that on our page as well.
Okay, so we will have to have you back sometime to finish telling us what happened with the Hope
Definitely
Box.
have to come back and bring somebody from the Dad's Army.
Yes.
So we can
bring your husband.
Have a good conversation. Again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on the show. And also, watch your kids around water. Have somebody responsible around the pool. Don't leave your kids or pets unattended in the vehicles. Nope. And tune in to us next week on the 27th. We'll be back on air at hopefully at the People's House.
Yes, at the MCRC.
And we have a slew of guests lined up for that. Again, have a beautiful weekend, and God bless. And don't forget the Trump rally. It's going to be great.
I'll see you there. Bye.